Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphic. A lot of lit up areas here. Yellow, this is just about all for wind chill advisories, except St. Lawrence Island winter weather advisory there in the Bering Strait coast, with those north winds gusting 45 miles an hour to continue tonight into tomorrow. And blowing snow, creating visibilities half mile or less at times. Also wind chills anywhere from to 25 below zero. The remainder of the wind chill areas here, or wind chill advisories, are for wind chills running anywhere from 35 to 45 below zero. Winter weather advisory here, eastern Alaska range area, due to, along with low wind chills down to as low as 45 or 50 below in the windy areas here for the Tanana Valley and the eastern Alaska range areas. And then right there, that's a winter storm watch for mainly White Pass, the extreme northern areas there, the Panhandle, or up toward the White Pass area. And that's for tomorrow night into early Monday. For possible heavy snow, 6 to 12 inches possible up toward that way. The remainder of the Panhandle will be a little too warm for any heavy snow at the lower elevations. Moving up to the north, red area here, wind chill warning. Kobuk Valley and eastward here along and south of the Brooks Range, it includes Arctic Village, but north of Fort Yukon. And that's for wind chills to 60 below zero with winds anywhere the wind is 15 miles an hour or more will be in the wind chill warning area there of 60, 65 below. Same thing for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. A little more wind there, though. That's a winter storm warning for 40 mile an hour winds, creating snow and blowing snow, reducing visibilities to less than a quarter mile at times. And also wind chills to 60 degrees below zero. Conditions here not quite as bad in the eastern North Slope, where the winter weather wind chill advisories are out for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. So moving on to satellite imagery. Can see moisture streaming northward here. A couple of surges, one up over the eastern interior, just bringing areas of light snow with that, or flurries and clouds, and a little milder temperatures here to the eastern interior. That extends back down into south central Alaska. A little bit of snow fell overnight in areas, the Kenai Peninsula and Madawaska-Sitna Valley. Anchorage measured about 1/10 of an inch or quarter inch at the most of new snowfall. Low pressure here in the, or coming up toward the Gulf of Alaska, the occluded front into the central and eastern Gulf, bringing moisture into the Panhandle. Cold air continues to plunge southward through the Bering Strait here from the Arctic, all the way down and beyond the Aleutians. Snowfall levels, afternoon temperatures here in the mid to upper 20s over the Aleutians. Winds gusting to 45 miles an hour to the north at St. George Island, with pretty persistent light snow going on there. And that extends back up about the same conditions, 40, 50 mile an hour winds St. Lawrence Island today, with visibilities generally not all that bad, anywhere from 1/2 to 2 miles in snow, with those surges of, or kind of snow squalls coming down all the way down to the eastern Aleutians. Again, amounts pretty light, but temperatures below in the 20s, I just mentioned, in those areas. And kind of a break here, Kodiak right through here, another system down to the south, not all that impressive, but this front across the Panhandle, as you can see, this approaches, but that original one brought about 1 inch of rain to Ketchikan today. By contrast, only 1/10 of an inch fell at over at or north there at Juneau. Also at Yakutat, about 1/10 of an inch. Cordova had maybe 2 to 3 inches of wet snow. Temperatures in the lower 30s there, and then it kind of cuts off, as I mentioned, just light amounts here over the eastern interior areas. And watching this low here again, occluded front approaching the southwest coast this afternoon, right about in this area, still off the coast there, so look for the rain to continue for the Panhandle and becoming mixed or pure snow there as you gain elevation and head east and northeast. Area of light snow with this trough over the eastern interior, again with clouds, a little milder temperatures. Coldest areas up here under the Arctic high, or the Arctic ridge, with the high centered over the western north slope. Umiat Airfield and Arctic Village at 3 p.m. this afternoon, both 38 degrees below zero. That was the two coldest areas there, but pretty gusty winds here in areas of the interior. With, let's see, it was Delta Junction, seeing gusts to about 35 miles an hour, as also at Salsa River there east of Fairbanks, seeing some pretty gusty winds up to 40 miles an hour in that area. And breezing conditions, but not quite as gusty, except higher elevations, 40 to 50 miles an hour, all the way out here to the southwest coast. And then once the cold air gets out over the water, picks up moisture, snow from the Pribilofs down to the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, snow showers out west toward the western Aleutians. For tonight, not much of a change, about the same pattern here, except the winds may be becoming a little more easterly as this low center pulls up to just south of the Alaska Peninsula, developing low there. So a little bit more east-northeast instead of north-northeast, but really northern Bering Sea, the Bering Strait, you won't see much change at all. Still variable clouds, maybe some light snow, snow flurries tending to decrease here over the eastern interior. Cold, well below zero again, or staying well below zero in the minus 40s there for the north slope on out to the Arctic coast, northwest interior. And snow showers, cloudy sky, south central Alaska, north Gulf Coast, and mixture of rain or snow showers for the Panhandle. This system tomorrow slides up toward Kodiak. It's going to bring a good surge of moisture and warmer air with it, so rain will be approaching the north Gulf Coast. Or be changing toward rain for the North Gulf Coast in the afternoon. Mixture precipitation starting out as snow, changing toward rain for Kodiak, and increasing chances of snow across southern Alaska up the east side to the eastern Brooks Range, and a trough keeps it kind of damp over the Panhandle. Still not much change, about the same pattern there for the Bering Sea on down to the Aleutians. And the outlook for Monday, winds now become a little more north-northeast here with more of a north to south orientation of the gradient there, so it's going to stay cold in the 20s for the Aleutians. Snow pretty likely for the Fox Islands and Alaska Peninsula there, with becoming more showery out to the west and to the north, but quite windy here over the northwest interior. Snow and blowing snow through the Brooks Range passes here with that tighter gradient, but lighter winds in the central interior. Rain or snow, North Gulf Coast. Mostly rain for the Panhandle at sea level, mixture as you head east and to the north Lincoln Island Glacier Bay. Mostly rain or rain and snow mixed Kodiak Island. Looking at the lows tonight, 25 to 55 below here over the northeast interior, with temperatures generally above zero for the Susitna Valley except the Copper River Basin, and then markedly warmer as you head out toward the coast. Highs tomorrow, after your lows above freezing over the Panhandle, you'll have highs in the 40s tomorrow, lower to mid, and near 40 here for the North Gulf Coast, upper 30s near 40 Kodiak Island, and lower 30s for the Aleutians, below zero north and northwest of the Alaska Range. Lows the following morning, not quite as cold, 25 to 35 below here over the northern interior. Teens again, south central Alaska, and above freezing for the southeast coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic here for Sunday morning. Marginal VFR with Aries IFR here for the Aleutians Bering Sea. Marginal VFR for St. Lawrence Island tomorrow. That'd be an improvement over today. And VFR, much of the areas out west, and then central interior on down across south central Alaska. Marginal conditions becoming VFR Kodiak Island, back into Bristol Bay, the inland areas there. Some IFR lingering over the, looks like somewhere around the Eagle area. Also northern Prince William Sound to Thompson Pass, some IFR here in northern Panhandle. And for the afternoon, with all the moisture coming up, another surge pushing northward, got IFR, Kodiak Island, all along the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula, slowly spreading northward to the southern slopes of the central Alaska Range late in the afternoon, or by the latest early evening. Patch IFR up here from, say around the Tanana area up across the Yukon Flats. Another one there along the Arctic coast. And VFR here, Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound, Selawik Valley, right down across the Yukon-Kuskokwim deltas. And still some IFR possible there at times tomorrow afternoon for St. Lawrence Island. a band here in the central Bering Sea, otherwise marginal for the Aleutians. Moving on to Monday morning, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, areas of IFR there, otherwise marginal for the North Slope, and narrower area of VFR here from the northwest coast and the Kobuk Valley down across Seward Peninsula. Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta really narrowing out here into Bristol Bay, marginal VFR with areas of IFR for the Aleutians and Bering Sea. With the IFR, mostly over the eastern Aleutians and the western Alaska Peninsula. IFR, Kenai Peninsula up into northern Cook Inlet, managed to sit in the valley, and right up in the central interior, back across the Yukon Flats. IFR for the Gulf and all of the Panhandle. And for Monday afternoon, that holds IFR, Gulf of Alaska, North Gulf Coast, Kodiak, Southeast Coast, Kuskokwim Valley, across Cook Inlet, marginal VFR on up toward the Alaska Range into the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country, and the big area IFR up here, Kobuk Valley, northern Yukon Flats across the central eastern Brooks Range of the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and areas IFR here over the eastern Bering Sea, but improving as you head west, becoming marginal, and then VFR way out there to the west. And for it passes tomorrow, Anaktuvuk, VFR becoming marginal as moisture spreads northward, and same forecast for Adigan. Again, that's going to be on the southern entrance. The marginal VFR will show up there first. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR turning toward IFR throughout the afternoon, and rainy, same forecast, marginal VFR turning toward IFR late morning and through the afternoon. At some point, it'll reach IFR flying conditions there, and windy. Deteriorating conditions here, partly holding VFR in the northern entrance, but the pass becoming marginal, southern approach becoming IFR. And for Isabel, IFR, southern entrance, marginal through the pass. Mentasta starting out pretty good with VFR becoming marginal. Tanita, marginal VFR becoming IFR, especially on the and Portage IFR. And let's see, for Chilkoot and White IFR. Freezing levels about 2,000 feet over the Panhandle, otherwise at the surface or below for the remainder of the state, including the Aleutians. Icing heaviest coming up to the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula and the Prince William Sound here. Widespread moderate of about 5,000 feet. Lighter, more isolated conditions up to the north on the eastern interior, and below about 5,000 just areas of there for the Bering Sea and the Panhandle. Taking a look at the jet stream, and we've got the Arctic, or the true Arctic jet here, just catching the Arctic coast there, and then the semi-Arctic jet here coming down around this low center, which is right along the southwest coast, and then southerly flow, those two combining, a lot of moisture coming northward for some decent precipitation, especially along the coast. And for 9,000 feet, becoming windier in the Panhandle, but the strongest winds here, Kodiak Island up into southern Alaska up to 55 knots, and then northeast winds 30 to 50 knots out over the central and western Bering Sea. And for 3,000 feet, got with again a trough axis right through here, southerlies 40 to 50 knots on the east side of that, northeasterlies 20 to 45 knots to the west, and 20 to 30 knot winds coming into the Panhandle. Turbulence, occasional moderate chop, northern southeast coast, North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak, pretty good area here up over the west central interior, as well as out in the Aleutians.
Ahoy, Cadets, and welcome to the Okeanos Explorer. I'm Debbie, and I'm an ocean explorer. I work for NOAA, which stands for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Together with many other people, I work on this ship, and we explore the deep sea. How do we do that? Let's go find out.
Octonauts, let's do this. Yow!
The pressure in the ocean is so great humans can't go there, so we send a special robot. Octocadets, meet Deep Discoverer, our special robot for ocean exploration. And this is Chris. He works with Deep Discoverer. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Debbie.
Can you tell us about what Deep Discoverer does?
Sure. So this is Deep Discover, and today we're going to take Deep Discover up to 4 miles down to the ocean floor so you can see what Deep Discoverer sees.
And how do we do that?
We do that by using these powerful cameras and powerful lights.
That's neat. And what is that?
And this is our manipulator arm, and we use this arm to take biological and geological samples that we store up front in these boxes, and so that we can bring them to the surface so scientists can analyze them.
Wow, isn't that cool, Octocadets? Wow! Now that we know more about the special robot that explores the seafloor, let's find out more about the ship. Octocadets, let's do this. Now let's find out what we do with D2's video. Come along. This is the control room. A lot of things about D2 happen in here. Behind me you see the pilots. They steer D2 on the seafloor. And over here we have scientists. Hi Steve and Stacy.
Hi, this is Steve and I am Stacy and we are marine biologists.
Can you tell us about the work you do here?
We actually look at the videos collected by the robots and we try to identify organisms along with other scientists on the shore.
What are you looking at right now?
We're actually looking at a sea star.
That's so awesome, thank you. Now let's look at how we make maps of the seafloor.
Excellent, Quasi. A good map helps you to get to places you've never been.
We also have a scientist on board who makes maps of the seafloor. Hi Derek.
Hi, Debbie.
Can you tell us about your work?
Sure. My job on the ship is to make maps of the ocean floor. We do this by sending sound from the bottom of the ship. It echoes off the seafloor and comes back to the ship. And then from that, we can make maps like this. So this is what it would look like if you were able to drain the water out of the ocean and actually see what the landscape looked like down there. We use these maps to give the vehicles a place to dive, and they explore further, just like Octonauts do.
Status report, Dashie.
We're right on course, Captain.
So earlier we learned that D2 picks things up from the seafloor with his manipulator arm. Let's find out what we do with those samples. This is the wet lab, and Megan spends a lot of time here. Megan, can you tell us about your work?
I am the sample data manager, so when the ROV comes up, we go out and we collect the samples from the ROV and we bring them in here. And we try to record as much information about them as possible, everything from the details about what they look like to the environment conditions where they were found. How cold was it, for example? Then we come in and we take imagery using this microscope, and we take pictures using this camera as well. And then after we get all the pictures taken and we're ready, we prepare them for shipping to other scientists and museums so more science can be done, such as the squat lobster, this cup coral as well.
And what is that?
This is a piece of coral, or several pieces of coral, that we think might actually be a new species. So we are going to send it out for a comparison to existing species to see if we discovered something new.
Wow, you have a really cool job.
Thank you.
Fascinating. I've read about this, but I've never actually seen it.
An important part of how we explore the ocean is keeping in touch with scientists and Octocadets on shore. Let's go see how we do that. Rosemary, could you tell the Octocadets a little about what that dish does?
Sure. My name is Lieutenant Rosemary Abbott. I'm the operations officer aboard the Okeanos Explorer, and that is our VSAT. It stands for Very Small Aperture Terminal, and inside that satellite dome is a very powerful dish antenna that allows us to communicate with shore and share video in real time. The technology is called telepresence.
Wow, that is so interesting. Thank you, Rosemary. Now I'm getting really hungry. Let's go to the kitchen and talk about food. This is the ship's kitchen, also known as the galley. And this is Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Debbie.
Michael is the chief steward on this ship, and he keeps 49 people fed for 3 weeks at a time. Michael, how do you do that?
With a lot of care and with the help of 3 crew members. I have myself, the chief steward, a chief cook, and a second cook. and we just do it with a lot of love and care and make sure that everybody's happy and well fed. We use up to 150 dozen eggs per trip, up to 100 gallons of milk, a lot of veggies and fruits, a lot of snacks. Everybody's very pleased with what we usually put out. We also make sure that we do it in a loving way, in a sanitary way, in a safe way that keeps everybody from getting any tummy aches.
I'm about to enter the ship's bridge. It's like the Octopod's headquarters.
Octonauts to the HQ.
Ahoy, Captain.
Ahoy, Debbie.
Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Octocadets, meet Eric Johnson, the commander of the ship. Eric, can you tell us about what you do up here?
Absolutely. Hello, Octocadets. My name's Eric Johnson. I'm an Corps officer, and I'm the captain of the Okeanos Explorer. Welcome to my office. This is where we drive the ship. This is where we control the operations. We run the propellers that are underneath us in the back to the wheel up here at the front, which is where we steer. It's a pretty cool job. It's very exciting, and it's pretty beautiful around here as well.
So, Octocadets, now you know a little bit about the ship and how we explore the deep sea. I hope you enjoyed our time together. I'll see you next time.
Debbie, safety first.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the segment. And on to the sea ice analysis here. Continuing to grow and head south and southwest. And with not much change over the next 3 days out here, so that conditions continue to advance southward. The sea ice will continue to advance south and southwest about on the same course and speed that it has for the last couple of days. On to the coastal water forecast. South coast of the Panhandle, southerlies 20 knots and south 30 knots with small craft advisories on the north part of, or the north coast. Look for gale force gusts there. Lynn Canal, 45 knot gusts out of the south, otherwise 25 knots sustained. Central southern inside waters, southeast 20 knots, seas 4 to 5 feet. Moving on to Monday. Have gales here, extreme south coast, southwest 35 knots, diminishing to about 30 knots there for the central coast, north coast southerlies at 25 knots, 18-foot seas. Hold on to the gale force southeast gusts there for Lynn Canal up to 40 knots. Same thing with Stevens Passage now. Southeast 25, gusts 40, and sustained southerlies 40 knots. Clarence Straits seas at 11 feet. And for the North Gulf Coast, east-southeast winds tomorrow, full gales at 40 knots, 17-foot seas, and easterlies at 30 knots for Prince William Sound, seas up to 7 feet, and quite windy in Cook Inlet, north of the Foreland, small craft advisories, 25-knot winds, 7-foot seas, 45-knot winds here for the area south of the Forelands, all the way into Kamishak Bay out of the northeast with seas 11 to 13 feet. And then for Monday, northern Cook Inlet, much lighter now, 15 out of the northeast and northeast 20 for southern Cook Inlet. Kamishak Bay back down to 15 knots out of the north. South, 20 knots for the Barrens, and south-southeast for the North Gulf Coast at 20 knots, 15-foot seas. Southeast 20, Prince William Sound, seas at 4 feet. Kodiak Island, gale force winds. Your direction depends on which side of the islands you're on. Shelikof Strait out of the northeast at 40, 10-foot seas. South 35 knots on the Pacific side, 18-foot seas, and that extends all the way to Castle Cape with those southerly 35-knot winds. And then they go northeast here for the Alaska Peninsula, 30 to 35 knots, and northeast winds, 30 knots for Bristol Bay. 25 knots for Bristol Bay on Monday out of the northeast, and northeast 35 knots for gale force winds here all the way to Cape Sarachev. And then 30-knot winds south side of the Alaska Peninsula out of the east, 22-foot seas. As you head up toward Kodiak, though, south 30 knots, seas 21 feet. 25-knot southerlies on the Pacific side of the island, Shelikof Strait southeast of 15. Fox Islands tomorrow, northeast 30 to 40 knots, about covers it there with 12 to 24-foot seas. Northeast 40 knots, Adak and Atka, and 40 knot winds out of the northeast all the way out to Shemya. Pretty uniform wind pattern there. Seas at about 25 feet. And for Monday, back to more northerly direction here, especially out west, but coming down to 30 knots there, but in toward Adak and Atka, north and then north-northwest at 40 knots. 45 knot winds, Unimak Island, north-northwest from a north-northwest direction, and north 40 to 45 knots for Unalaska Islands with seas 20 to 25 feet. Southwest coast, we've got gales north of Nunivak Island, otherwise northeast 30 to 35 knots. Northeast 30 for the Pribilofs, 40 knots from the northeast, St. Matthew Island and St. Lawrence Island. And for Monday, gale force northerlies continue for St. Lawrence Island, down a little bit there, 35 knots into the northern Bering Sea, north 30 knots along the southwest coast, 35 knot gales for the Pribilofs from the north. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, west winds at 20 tomorrow, otherwise west 20 for the central coast, becoming northwest on the west side, and 20 knots Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, then 30 knots Cape Thompson to Wales. Outlook for Monday, brisk wind advisories, Wales all the way up to Cape Beaufort, 25 to 35 knot northerlies or 30 knot northerlies. Winds to about 15 on the west side, and then north to northeast 10 knots for the central and eastern coast. Tonight again, not bad up that way, mostly clear. Temperatures anywhere from 30 into the minus 40s in areas there from the north slope, and not so cold here for the areas south of the Brooks Range with increasing clouds and moisture, but still wind chill advisories, wind chill warnings out, 60 below there for the Arctic Village area into the northern Koyukuk Valley, and also for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, we've got wind chill warnings of 60 below. Snow showers for the North Gulf Coast, mixed rain and snow showers of the Panhandle, no change in the Bering Sea, and that continues through Monday. Next big storm bringing moisture, rain, and snow to southern Alaska into the Panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.